This is Fantasy Sanctuary Week 6 DFS locks. If you're playing on DraftKings this week, these are the 5 players that I want to build around, whether that's cash game lineups, whether it's GPP tournament lineups, whatever it is you're playing, these are the players that you can start a lineup with and then figure out the rest from there. I'm going to give you the stacks and correlations I like with these players, going to give you the reasoning on them, and I'm going to do it all in the next 10 minutes. Stay tuned. You'll hear everything you need to know to get your lineups into the green this week. Starting with Raheem Mostert, 6,400 versus the Panthers. The Panthers, it's a 48.5 over-under, but the Panthers are given 14 points in this. That's the Dolphins favored by 14. It really looks like the Dolphins could leap out to a convincing lead early on, but Raheem Mostert could either have accumulated enough points early on to be still very, very relevant, or he could still do so. We saw when the Dolphins eased off against the Broncos a few weeks ago, they kept racking up points because when a bad defense is faced with an elite run game, they still struggle to stop it. Mostert, he's going to have a huge workload this weekend. Strachan is now an injured reserve. Jeff Wilson is listed as doubtful, so more than likely will not be playing in this game. Salvon Ahmed is Salvon Ahmed. He's not somebody we particularly need to worry about. And Mostert, he's had 12 red zone carries, of which 50% have gone for touchdowns. Jeff Wilson, not going to be there. The Panthers defense gives up the second most fantasy points per game to running backs. They've allowed a league-leading 8 touchdowns to the position, and one of only 5 defenses to give up 5.0 yards per carry or more. I think that you can start Mostert in cash games, those multipliers, double-ups. I think you can start them in tournaments. I think a lot of people are going to be looking to pay down at running back this weekend because of the likes of Donta Foreman, because of the likes of other running backs who are available sub 5K. But that just makes Raheem Mostert an even more bankable asset for me, and I'll be looking to play him everywhere I can. If you want to correlate the play for tournaments, Adam Thielen has been tearing it up. It's pretty ugly, but he is the wide receiver 11 overall. Hayden Hurst also has a nice matchup. The Dolphins aren't particularly great against tight ends, even though Hayden Hurst has been pretty ropey. If you're looking for a dart throw, I don't mind that one. But also, if you're looking to stack this game, don't be afraid to add Mostert in there with Tua and Tyreek too. We've seen over the last few weeks that just because he's a running back, he can still be involved in those stacks, and all 3 of those players can get there. Moving on, DeAndre Swift, 6,100 against the Jets. The Eagles, they've made it clear by now that what once was thought to be a messy committee with Rashad Penny, DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, really it's just a 2-horse backfield. And we're already seeing signs that one of those horses is pulling clear. Over the last 2 games, DeAndre Swift has seen 41 touches to Gainwell's 14. Swift's outproduced Gainwell in yards per reception, 6.1 to 4.7. Yards per carry, 4.1 to 2.8. And juke rate as well, 4.9% versus 0% for Gainwell. The Jets, they struggle in defense against pass-catching running backs and tight ends. That's what I'm looking to take advantage of this week. Really good against wide receivers, but they're just struggling in this area. They've allowed the 7th most fantasy points to running backs and allowed the 2nd most receiving yards to the position as well. I think this all sets up for DeAndre Swift to eat this weekend. He's been a top 15 running back for 4 weeks running, finishing with 27 PPR points, 14.8, 17.9, and 16.8. And although I'm not desperate to play DeAndre Swift in cash games because the Eagles as an offense are a tricky team to play in those multipliers because you never know if they're going to stomp a team. What does that do to the player's usage? Or does Jalen Hurts get all the touchdowns? But in tournaments, I really like the correlation of playing DeAndre Swift with Dallas Goedert, who's 4,800. So for not more than 12K, you've got 2 very good players who could easily score 30 points between them this weekend. Before we get on to the next player, if you are here for the first time tuning in with Fantasy Sanctuary, welcome. We appreciate you being here. Hit that like button down below. Leave a comment. We answer every single question on this channel, whether it's a dynasty trade question, whether it's a start and sit, whether it's DFS lineups. We answer them all. Hit the subscribe button. Trying hard to push over 1,400 subscribers this weekend. We have so much DFS Dynasty Best Ball redraft content. We will help you win leagues. Let's move on to the Arizona Cardinals and LA Rams. And in this game for me, it is Matthew Stafford. After several weeks of me talking about how the lack of passing touchdowns was hurting Matthew Stafford's fantasy production, but he was playing really well. He finally got 2 in the same game. And I don't think that there's any mistake in the fact that now that Cooper Kupp is back, we should be seeing plenty more of those kind of days. The Cardinals defense, they rank 30th in DVOA. They give up the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks and the 6th most passing yards through 5 weeks. So it's very easy to say, okay, this Cardinals team, they've been plucky, they've been better than we expected, but they are not going to be able to deal with an offense that includes Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell, who's been playing far better than expected, Kyron Williams, and Tyler Higbee. The Rams should have too much for them on offense, and I'm expecting a very good day for the passing games. I think you could stack Stafford with both Kupp and Nacua. It's expensive, but on a slate where we're lacking the true elite quarterbacks, we're looking for quarterbacks who can get there through high passing volume and touchdowns. And how can we access that as a stack? And that's one great way to do it. You can run it back on the other side with Marquise Brown, who looks like a great play, still underpriced at 5,300. In years gone by, it would have been a spot where I would have targeted Tyler Higbee against the Cardinals because the Cardinals have been awful against tight ends for the last couple of years. But so far this season, they're allowing the 4th fewest fantasy points to tight ends. So I would rather play this from the wide receivers if you are looking to stack it up. Let's move on to our next one. This is the bargain of the week. This is the one player which I want in as many lineups as possible. Josh Downs, 4,100 versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's no point crying about Anthony Richardson's absence, because Gardner Minshew, when he stepped in, he's been effective for the Colts receivers. And in particular, he's given a boost to Josh Downs when he's been on the field. During plays that Minshew has been on the field, Downs averages a 25% target share. He operates out of the slot 83% of the time. And now he's going to play a Jags defense that's given up the NFL's 9th most yards to wide receivers and the 3rd most touchdowns. At 4,100, I'm not sure you need to play it in cash this week because there's so many cheap running back options. But I don't hate it all. I think a lot of people will flock to those cheap running backs. And if you can come up with a build where you're paying down at wide receiver slightly so that you can pay up for the more expensive running backs, that makes plenty of sense to me. So we are going to move on in a moment. But first, if you were liking all this and you want more in-depth DFS content, hit the join button down below. For less than $5 a month, you can get access on the Golden Deck Chair package to all my DFS write-ups. I write up a huge weekly column, DFS Deep Dive. It goes into our Discord where there's over 100 people helping each other with lineup decisions, trades, starting leagues together, helping with start and sits, as well as all my DFS content in exclusive members-only video where I break down good chalk, bad chalk, talk about late swap opportunities, talk about stacks that I like every week, and just go a bit more in depth than in this video. It's less than a couple of quid a week, a couple of dollars a week, and it pays for itself. I promise you we're going to do what we can to make you a winner in that format, and you will not regret it. Let's move on to Jordan Addison, 5,700 versus the Bears. Jordan Addison, he's been slowly working his way into the first team offense, setting a season high target share of 19% in week 5 and turned it into his biggest fantasy performance to date with 18.4 PPR points. Addison, make no mistake, was an excellent prospect coming out of college and well worth that first round draft capital that he got from the Vikings. What's the only question mark is going to be, can he deal with wide receiver 1 level coverage from opposing defenses? And there will be games where perhaps he gets taken out of it slightly by really good cornerbacks. But this week against the Bears, who allow the 6th highest yards per reception of 14.1 yards to wide receivers, that isn't going to be the case. I think that it's very easy to plug and play Addison at this price and for him to go for 20 points. I think if you're looking for a correlation, you can play him with DJ Moore in tournaments. I'm not sure I'd be going with the Kirk Cousins stacks this week. I feel like without Justin Jefferson, he's possibly got more routes to failure than he usually has. So, yeah, it's a tricky one, but I will be avoiding it. But all in all, very pleased with how this is shaping up. If you've got questions, leave them in the comments. If you've got more DFS desires that you want quenched, jump into the Discord. Starts from 99p a month. Absolute bargain. We will do everything we can to get you set up to win, and we will be back next week for more DFS locks.